Okay, Charles, this is for you. This is showing how I'm doing the wing. First off, I papered off the open bays. I shot a coat of, just one coat of primer on here, and it's relatively good. It's not a heavy coat either. It had an imperfection here and one here, very small. And I used the 05096 Acro Green Spot Putty to do that pinhole. Like I said before, don't use much of it. This tube is about 5 pounds. Let's see how much it weighs. 5 pounds may be an exaggeration, but you'll get the idea here. And this tube is not full. Weighs 1 pound. 1 pound for this. So you put all that on there, you just added a pound to your airplane. Okay, it dries within 5 minutes. And what I do is I take a 320 on a block, and we're just going to I'm just going to finish off that imperfection. It was a small divot about the head of a pin. You want to sand this all back off. I don't really like showing me sanding, but I want people to get a drift on how I can finish so quickly. Using the correct products is one thing, and that product is something new for me that I discovered off a Windy video, and he didn't mention it. He mentioned red lead or some nonsense, but I saw he was using it, and I called the people at the body shop, and they said, oh yeah, that's great stuff, and it is, because it dries quick. So now you see that it's gone. It's all that's there is that one little spot about the size of a head of a pin. You take the DC 540, dust it only on that spot to cover it up, and it disappeared. And you can go over the entire model like that and pick every little ding and imperfection out of the thing and just spot them in. Depending, a paint job is only as good as you want to make it. I mean, you can spend hundreds of hours picking off every little ding, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to block it and get it flat and make it look nice. Now, on this particular model, I've been thinking I do have a pint of Miss Ashley Red that I was going to add pearl to. I bought a can of pearl essence to add to this. And I'm thinking that I might use base coat clear coat on this model. And I think that if I use base coat clear coat, I could paint the whole airplane in half a pint because the pigments are a lot more. And the next thing about the base coat clear coat is the thinners aren't as hot, so I won't have any problems with substrate. And I'll airbrush that all on. Boy, it'll stink the house up, but that's just the way it goes. So the airplane, this is 2 days progress on sanding and priming, and I'm getting it close. It'll be a few more days, probably another 20 plus hours sanding, and the fillets are perfect. Now, I was going to do those giant fillets in the front here, but I have since changed my mind. That was something that's kind of a signature of this airplane, but I think I'm going to leave it off. Weight, they would probably add an ounce to the airplane. I don't want to add any more weight to it than I already did. I'd like this airplane to be in the 60 62 to 64 ounce range, and because if you go over the 64 ounce range, you got to run 18,000 slides. So we'll get the paint job and the essence of the airplane without the fillet in the front. So what I'm going to do is here, before I take the paper up, is I'm going to take the 320, and this is the one coat of primer on here, and I'm just going to knock it down. I have a thinner sanding block. Let me get another piece of sandpaper, brand new. Here we go. This is the 3M 320. It's called Sandblaster Pro. It's an open coat sandpaper. It's available only at Lowe's. The part number is 325U. It's a 320 paper. It works great. It's unbelievably good. I thought, it is a 3M product, but I thought the black wet dry 3M was the best, but it's not, because it loads up when you're sanding dry, and this does not load up. So that's an added plus. I'm running a campaign to raise some funds for some better video editing equipment. Hopefully you guys will get on board with that, and we can make some professional videos instead of these home movie style tapes, because I really want to get the word out on how to do this stuff. So now I got it on a sanding block. And remember, we don't want the starved horse look on this leading edge, so, and you notice how I'm sanding. I'm not sanding, grinding it back and forth. I'm rolling it over the leading edge because I want it to stay around. I don't want any flats in it. Because when the sunlight hits it, remember I told you sanding is a signature. When the sunlight hits it, if you sand this way, it puts a facet like a diamond in it, and it looks terrible. But if you roll it over the leading edge this way, oh, I can see a low spot. I have to use a little bit of that putty. It'll be a good demo area. There's one low spot right there, and I'll show you what I'm going to do for that and how long that, or why that putty's so good. And just keep sanding until all the area is the same color. The low spots are going to be darker than the high spots. And if it's real low, you'll be able to see it just like this spot right here. That's way low. And ain't nothing like a straight airframe when it's painted nice. It's just beautiful. Sanding is an art. Okay, we went one way. Now we go back this way. Keep all the facets looking the same. Okay, low spot, that putty I'm talking about. Don't use much of this stuff because it will ruin your airplane. So I take a little bit of this stuff out and I use it on my favorite epoxy mixing tool, which is the Model AV. I got a brand new epoxy mixing thing, August 04 Model Aviation magazine. The pages are slick. It works great for mixing epoxy, putting the putty on, etc. I don't even read this thing anymore. So you take a razor blade with just a little bit on it and trowel that on. It's less than the thickness of a piece of paper. It'll dry in just a few minutes. We'll sand that up and shoot the primer on it, and that spot will be gone. And if you don't believe that I use Model Aviation magazine to mix epoxy, there's proof. I'm using it for the putty now, but we'll tear that page off and then mix epoxy on it. And that's about all I've ever got out of the magazine. Once in a while, there's an article from somebody like Paul Walker, Bob Hunt, or Will Tomorrow, or somebody that something of interest. But other than that, it's just an ad magazine for RC quadcopters and that stuff. And I'm just not much interested in RC quadcopters. Speaking of that, I put a link on the FAA and the AMA, and I got to thinking about what is causing all the hubbub. It's Amazon. Amazon's going to start using aerial things for delivery. Well, Amazon, you better get ready, because a radio can knock your drone out of the air, and so can a sheet. Take a blanket and throw it over the top of it. They're going to be losing a lot of those, and what they've done is screwed it up for everybody. Follow the money. And if you don't think they'll clump control line into it, they'll say model airplanes. They won't discern whether it's control line, radio control, free flight. They don't have that much intelligence. I've heard somebody say that we fall under the heading of a kite, but I sure hate to chance it. So we got one coat on the trailing edge, one coat on the leading edge, and we've fixed a couple of spots. That trailing edge is ready to paint. Wingtips ready to paint. I'll give you a rundown on the exact sequencing of the paint job. Let's see if this is ready to sand. Feels like it. Remember, I just put it on just a minute ago. Look at that. And she comes off. I'm going to unload the sandpaper. Sand it all back off. Do not leave it on there. The only thing that I think could be possibly better than this is a two-part type putty, but it takes longer to dry than that, because what we have in it, less than 5 minutes for it to dry, and that spot is now gone. And it's less than a piece of paper thick, and it probably weighs 1/100th of a gram. So, but if you do that 100 times, you get a gram. So be careful. So I take the paper towel and wipe that off. If you'll notice here, you got a high, a low, a high, a low, a high, a low. That's what you want to stay away from. That's what gives a starved horse look. So we're done sanding on that. And that starved horse look really stands out like a sore thumb to me. Take up the DC 540. We're just going to dust the area. Perfect. This will set for approximately a few days. It's going to be a few days before I paint it. It'll get one quick sand over with 500 grit sandpaper, and we'll go to paint. I see we got a few hairs here where I sanded through, so I'm going to have to put a little bit more paper on, paint on that. So let that dry, and I'll kind of lightly sand over that. But it's coming out real nice. Real nice. And we'll see what it weighs, see how much it gained. I'm thinking that all this priming, sanding, and painting, about 1.5 ounces so far. So we're looking for a complete substrate, 2 ounces. That ain't bad. Everything's got to weigh something. I don't know what that paper weighs, but we'll weigh it with the paper on it and see what it is. Come on. Yep. We're not in bad shape. It's at 31 3/4, and when this gas is off, it'll lose some. See a spot here. But put it on and sand it off. Don't leave it on there. So that's just a little tip on priming and painting. You remember I just painted that there. We come back in a second or two here, and matter of fact, I'll open my soda, take a drink, and by the time I take my first drink, we'll come back and touch up this area and give it a little bit more primer. What happened was here is I had sanded into the silk span and I got the Harries on it. But to kill those, we'll just knock off the top and hit it with another coat of primer. It'll be gone. Proof is in the pudding. That's why I'm doing the video on DC 540. Can't do that with dope. You'd be waiting forever. There is toluene in it, but there's also xylene in it. If you look at the MSDS that I posted at the list of ingredients, there's xylene in it. And I think that's what makes it dry so fast. That's absolutely perfect. All the hair laid down and went away. Can't see nothing. So that's it. So now after that's done, I got one spot here I'm going to sand out and reprime. We'll wait a minute and I'll sand that out. And then I'm going to take the paper off and show you what it looks like. And then after the paper's off, you just feather the edge back in and it'll look like your balsa line is perfectly straight because the tape line is perfectly straight. Whether it is or not, you know, let's say that you might have had a divot in it or whatever. But as I told you, when I'm looking at a model sitting on the floor in appearance judging, I'm looking to see, was that planking cut straight? Is there a little chip or bow in it? Are all the cap strips meeting the planking perfectly? And I went over this 4 or 5 times before I put the covering on it to make sure that all those cap strips were sanded absolutely perfectly flat, and then a long T-bar to make sure they were perfectly flat. Those are the type of things that absolutely make a high quality model as opposed to just a mediocre model. The fits around the flaps, I can't really show it here when I get to it, but there's a curve here and it goes into the flap. It stays a perfect distance all the way, 1/16 of an inch, all the way around. Just like the fit and finish on a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or one of those high dollar sports cars, European sports cars. The fits on the door and the hood and everything is just you know, you can tell they took their time to put the thing together. So now we had a little spot here that had a little spot in it. That's it. And you can be as crazy as you want on a finish. Like I said, you know, if you want to go over and find every little flaw and niche. And that's that. So that's perfect. Now we'll take the paper off, because I don't need to put any more primer on this. Look at all the weight that I saved. I saved all that weight from not priming this, because you don't need it. If you see an airplane go over a wing over, and you can't see through the wing, he's got too much paint on it. Perfect. And I'll come back and feather this edge in when this primer completely dries. Let's see what it weighs now, because I know this paper is heavy. We started at 30 before we started any of the priming and finishing. We are now at 31.75. So you can't complain. It's 1 ounce and 3/4 of substrate and primer on it. But I put it on, sanded it off, put it on, sanded it off. And it's really flat. I'm not going to worry too much about how the cap strips look. If you wanted to be real slick, you come back and prime each cap strip and sand them out. But I don't know how involved I'm going to get, because I'm kind of excited on getting my next project going. I haven't taken it out of the box. I got the plans and all the parts for it, but I think it'll be an eye-opener. It'll be my first time competing in that event, but I think I should be alright. So this, you can feel it, it's a little cool, but it's almost ready to sand. And then how I get this ready to sand is I just take the flat off until it's all powdered. Look, it turns a lighter gray. Maybe you can see that. I'm not sure. Remember, roll the sandpaper in a crosshatch. Anybody that's a mechanic knows that when you hone a cylinder, it's a 45-degree crosshatch. That's basically what I do here, is a 45-degree crosshatch to each other, and that keeps the airfoil shape instead of those flats. So we went the one direction, and now we'll go the other. guys need to tell me if you want to just have me let the camera run, or would you rather I cut, edit the videos, or you don't want the videos? Because they're extremely... I'd like to get the camera equipment like I told you and do some high quality ones like Hunt did. As a matter of fact, I talked to Bob today, and he's going to donate some lighting to the cause so we can get a little more professional look, and we're going to do a backdrop. I'm going to clean up the shop and so it doesn't look so bad. And if you notice, it turned a flat, like a pale gray instead of that deeper gray. And that's basically where I leave it at. And you just sand until it's perfectly flat. You cannot beat DC 540. Period. I don't care what anybody says. Show me a primer you can sand that fast. Before the final coat goes on this wing, as I'll go between the bays with 600 wet and sand out any of the brush marks in it. Not that there's many, because I used the dope rather thin. And take the flat back off and detail this trailing edge here. Day 28 today. This will not be a 30-day airplane. It'll probably be a 45-day airplane. That's 400 hours. And that's about right. About 400 hours to build one of these things. Let's hope that this art is not lost. Okay, that's all sanded out. That's it. This wing is ready to paint, the top side. And I just got to repeat that 3 more times. And we're going to do the detailing of the model as well. Go over everything and make sure that every little nook, cranny, everything is perfect, because it's a tribute airplane and I want 20 points for it. Kind of excited. I want to do the gold leaf lettering on camera to show you guys that I really was a sign painter once in life. Done a lot of things in life. Glazer, sign painter, cabinet maker, mechanic, welder, machinist. Aircraft mechanic. And that's all learned from model airplanes. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a great teaching tool. When I was a kid, my senior year of high school, I had a metal shop, auto shop, wood shop, PE, drafting, auto shop. Now this is in order. I had 6 periods of shop and 1 period of physical education in my senior year. They don't even teach shop in school no more. They're afraid kids are going to get hurt. Well, if the parents don't teach the kids and the schools don't teach the kids, who's going to be left to do this? Nobody. Absolutely nobody. So if you're a parent watching this, or a tree hugger, you better think twice, because when you're older, there won't be anybody to fix anything. We'll have to hire somebody from China, where they don't have all these regulations on, oh, there's lead in the paint, or whatever. This country has become a nation of consumers. Nobody knows how to do anything anymore. Yeah, a technology job is nice. But what are you going to do when your car breaks down? There's got to be people to fix it. Or you need the body repaired or whatever. Somebody's got to be there to fix that. And those jobs, it's disproportionately paid for. I think the union mechanic now is about $18 or $20 an hour. Harley mechanic made $30 an hour. And that was fine. But you'll notice that a doctor is practicing and a mechanic better know what he's doing. There is no room for error in mechanicking. But they can err as a doctor. What's wrong with this picture? As a mechanic, you have to do your job perfectly every time. A doctor, he's just practicing. He don't have to be perfect. Well, I'm happy with that. That turned out nice. Got a little spot here. Kind of darken it up, make it all the same color. So Charles, that's for you. That's how one wing gets done. And that's ready to paint. So we'll go on to the next. And if you'll notice, this airplane, it's pretty transparent all the way through. I'm probably going to have to go get some more primer. I'm running out. I only had 5 cans. I'm on the 4th can now. So I got 1 can left. But there's been a whole lot of put it on, sand it off, put it on, sand it off on this. And I've been sanding for 2 days now. And if you can see here, that's going to take a lot of massaging to get that right. And then, of course, right there at the fillet, I added some of the green putty. But take your time. We're not in a big rush to get her finished, because, like I said, I do have airplanes to fly. And when this is all done, when all this sanding business is done, I've got to repaint this spot red. I'm going to make a balsa wood air tank, split it in half, glue it to the back of this here, glue the pilot in, and then we're only half done. I got to paint the inside of the canopy where the headrest or the roll bar goes over the top red so it matches the airplane. The bottom of the canopy red so that you can't see the blue putty going through there. Then glue it on, putty it up, and then we can get on to painting the airplane. So we're a long ways away from paint. There's quite a few steps. I'd say it's a week out from even thinking about spraying any paint, because it's going to be sanding and finishing and getting this thing ready to go. So I've probably taken up enough of your time, bored you to death. I hope you got some insight on how I do the wings on these airplanes. So until the next time, stay tuned.